The ideas expressed in the following presentations are those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views of ACI or its committees. ACI web sessions are recorded at ACI conventions or other concrete industry events and will be made available for viewing free of charge for 1 week. Thereafter, they will be archived on the ACI website or added to ACI's online CEU program, depending on their content.
Well, good evening, everybody. Welcome to Las Vegas. Our format tonight will have three speakers to talk about the 90-minute rule for concrete. And we'll do a Q&A after all three speakers have spoken. And so if you just hold your questions to the end, that'd be great. So today we have Terry Harris as our first speaker. Terry's been with the GCP Applied Technologies as the Director of Technical Services in the Americas. He has 38 years of experience in ready-mix, precast, pre-stress masonry, and concrete materials. Terry is active, and I've seen him all over here in ACI, ASTM, NRCM, and PCA. He has been and is current chair of several ACI committees, and is a member of multiple committees, and I counted 10 of them he's a member of, so the guy's pretty busy. Terry is also a member of the NPCA Technical Committee and with NRCM REST Committee. So without any further ado, I'll let Terry get started here.
That was way too much. I've been taking polls everywhere. Everywhere I go, I've been taking polls. People are tired of talking to me. You know, when I agreed to do this, I had no idea the number of strong opinions on the topic. Honestly, I've been kind of talking to everybody everywhere I go. I've sent emails out to people, and you know, a lot of times you email people with a generic question and you never hear back. Well, with this topic, you hear back right away. And I didn't get any emails back all in caps or bold or anything, but I could feel the loudness in their emails anyway. So really, I have not enjoyed less preparing for a presentation ever before than I've enjoyed less preparing for this one. Did that make sense? So normally, I'm really funny. I mean, I'm just hilarious. Not going to be funny tonight. I just can't be funny with this. This is so serious, so many people. So love it or lose it. And when I came up with that title, I didn't really think about it, but it's really true. Some people just, you know, they're hanging on to that 90 minutes and don't want to let go of it, and others are ready to absolutely trash it, get rid of it. So what's all the contentious discussion about? It's about this right here that says that we have to discharge the concrete from the ready-mix truck within 1.5 hours after essentially the water and the cement coming together. So this is what all the conversation is about. And then, of course, it says it can be waived. So this is right out of the current C94, and that's what we're going to talk about. Okay? Now, here's the proposed changes. And so I've taken this right out of the ballot language. So essentially, what we're talking about is the purchaser, the person buying the concrete, shall state, that means they have to, any time limit as to when the discharge must be completed. But if they don't do that, so if they don't do what they're supposed to, then the manufacturer, the ready-mix producer, he's going to determine that time limit and communicate it to the purchaser prior to delivery. Make sense? So we're going to do away with the plan is to do away with the default, 90 minutes, but not do away with time limits, right? Time limits are going to stay. They're just going to be either made by the purchaser or the ready-mix producer. And then we've added all this discussion at the bottom about what used to be in there and that kind of thing. So this is part of the change. And by the way, let me thank Dr. Lobo and Dr. Shazy for providing me with more information than I ever wanted to see from those two guys. So thank both of them for giving me some information. And then it continues here, so you can see that in section 12.9, we've taken that time limit out, and we're referencing back to say whatever time limit or drum revolution has been chosen, and that's what it is. And then we've added again some more language to the notes there. So that's the basis for all the discussion about the change in C94. How many of you are C94 voters? Okay, not as many as I thought. I feel like I'm the president speaking to the empty house. You know, nobody's here that matters. Oh, you guys don't matter. You don't vote. Okay, so it's also in the master spec. It's got some other language. It's very similar to that. Usually they can hang you on the reducing the time. You seldom get the other way. And then 301, and I don't know if there's any intent in 301 to change this to follow C94 and what they do, but right now 301 says that follow or shall comply with C94, and then it has the same language that's in C94. So again, I don't know if 94 changes, if 301 will follow suit or not. But that's there. Here is when I first became associated with ASTM C94, and I will tell you that I started in the concrete industry in 1980, and so I quickly became familiar with this document. And frankly, I joined ACI and ASTM essentially for two reasons. I thought everybody on the ACI 305 committee were idiots because they had a 90-degree max temperature in there, and I was in ready mix in South Texas, and you know it was 90 degrees in January and for concrete temperature, you know, before we had breakfast, before we ate our breakfast taco. So I thought all the people on 305 must be idiots. So I joined 305 in 1984 to get rid of the 90-degree temperature, and we did that. And I also joined ASTM because I wanted to get rid of the 90 minutes because it was causing me difficulties, and I was unsuccessful, so I stopped going to ASTM for a long time. So they annoyed me. They didn't listen. So you can see that not much has changed since 1981. When I first became familiar with this, the only thing that's really changed is we have eliminated the 300 revs, right? So now we just have a time limit, and now that's what the discussion is about. So not a lot of change the entire time that I've been in the industry, okay? And then you can go all the way back to 1935. I wasn't around then. Maybe a few of you might have been. Kirk, were you around, Kirk, when they wrote this document? So 1935 essentially is when this was first showed up in the C94, and you can see it's 1.5 hours. And then there's some other language about the aggregates and that. And it was interesting. I will say it's been interesting as I prepared for this to look at a lot of really old data and really old documents. Right? So I've spent a lot of time looking at these things, and it's been interesting. I've actually read C94 from first word to last word. I've never done that before, so it's really pretty well written, except for some things. So 1935 was a long time ago, and we're in Vegas, right? So in 1935, Elvis was born in Tupelo. 1935, January 8th. Really doesn't matter to me. I mean, Elvis, he sings pretty good. I sing pretty good. So, we have that in common. His dance moves are a little better than mine. We're not going to demonstrate that tonight. But much more important to me, though, in 1935 was about 75 miles away. My mother was born in 1935. So that was a long time ago. She's got her Roll Tide stuff on there. So 1930s concrete truck. This is at the Hoover Dam. It's a little different than what we use today. Just a little different. Here's another one. Now, we're going to talk about why the hour and a half is in there. I've heard a lot of different reasons for why the hour and a half is in there. I have not spoken to anyone yet that actually was there when the document was written. Okay? I haven't yet. I'm hopeful. I'm having a seance tonight afterwards to see if I can communicate But some people have actually said that they think it was put in there because the motor on the mixer ran out of gas at 90 minutes. I don't know if that's true. I've heard that. I mean, everybody's got an opinion, but that's what I've heard. So you can see that this has a motor for the mixer. So maybe that's true. I don't know. Frank, maybe, would you know? Frank, possible?
Well, 90 minutes.
Is it possible it ran out of gas? Is that, with those motors?
90 minutes, but it's about 4 hours you run out.
Okay. There goes that.
It was about a 5-gallon tank on the back for the mixer.
It's before my time, so I'm taking your word for that, Frank. Here's a 1930 cement plant. That's somewhere in the UK. Here's another one, 1928. I'm sure they made excellent cement there. Here's a concrete plant from 1936. It's a little different. It's been a while since I've seen a wooden frame concrete plant. Here's a cement test report. It absolutely gives you no information, so that hasn't changed from the current mill cert, right? So some things haven't changed, right? Oh, sorry, I forgot you were here. I really did. So, equipment-wise, it's totally different, right? It's not even the same. I would venture to say the cements are not the same either, right? So why is it in there? Is it in there for quality? Does the concrete go bad at 90 minutes? 91. Okay. I told you earlier about that. Is it a money thing? Is it just about money? Because it's going to cost us money. Is it about the equipment? I'm not sure, really. Honestly, I'm not sure why the 90 minutes was in there. I've heard a bunch of things. Again, I've talked to a lot of people, and somebody said that 90 minutes was, at the time, was the dormancy period of the cement they used. I don't know if that's true. I've heard a lot of reasons of why it was put in there, but I don't know what the reason is. Okay, I'm not sure what the reason is. If someone does know for sure, let me know. Now, this is the only data in my presentation. The rest of it is data-free, okay? This is it. This is the only data in here. And this is from some NRMCA research. And let me go ahead and put the other stuff up in here. So essentially what you could see is if you just kept mixing the concrete and didn't add any water, your strength actually goes up. It's a great thing, right? So we should mix all of our concrete for 2.5 hours and we'll get better strength, okay? So this is data. Now, the problem we get into and the things we get into with the concrete is that for most concrete mixes at 90 minutes, that slump is going to be significantly different at 90 minutes than it was when I first batched. Now, we can deal with all that stuff, but in general, if I leave the plant at a 5-inch slump, at 90 minutes, I'm probably at a 1-inch slump or something around there. So people start adding water and you get strength loss, and you can see again that if you don't add water, strength is fine. If you do add water, obviously you're going to lose strength. So this is just some data relative to time. There's a number of papers. One I looked at from the 50s, another one from, I think, the 70s. And there's a lot of data, and I would tell you that I think it's somewhat contradictory. One set of data says this, another set says this, and this is just one piece of data, okay? So it doesn't necessarily mean that because I'm at 90 minutes that concrete's bad, right? I mentioned that when I first got in the industry, I became acutely familiar with the C94 document because we would deliver concrete to South Padre Island, and you had to cross that long causeway, and you get trucks over there, and then you'd get halfway through the load, and some inspector would run up and say, "You got to send that truck back, that concrete's no good." It made me lose my mind, and I was much less tactful than I am now. I'm the master of tact now, but back then I was much less tactful, so I tended to tell that inspector what I thought of him and his sending my truck back, and then it turned into an argument of who's paying for that concrete, right? So I always thought the contractor should pay for it. Contractor, that makes sense to me. Not my fault, it was sitting there. And then he would say, "Yeah, but your spacing was wrong. It was supposed to be 20-minute spacing and you were at 10 minutes, so it's your fault." So it was always an argument. And unlike my wife who likes to argue, I don't like arguing, so I just didn't enjoy that. So again, here's some data that shows us that time itself is not necessarily bad for the concrete strength-wise. There's other things going on here. We don't know what the air was. We don't know what else changed with this. So don't read too much into this. Don't go decide to mix all your concrete for 2.5 hours. Yes?
Was the initial set in the old cement about this time 90 or 180 minutes? Because I had heard that because I've been following this myself, my long haul, and they said the 90 minutes was half of the initial set time, with no admixtures, we didn't have to train there, was about 180 minutes. And as you do around the committee, let's cut it in half and we'll be on the safe side. And that's how we got the 90 minutes. That's the story. But all this 90 minutes did not include any admixture, any retardant,
Right.
no train there, none of this stuff.
Right.
That's how that was all developed.
Yep.
At that time.
I don't know if that's true or not, Frank. I would say that it's possible that a straight cement, which would have been referred to as a 5-bag mix or something like that back in the day, it's possible that the initial set was 3 hours. I would think they would tend to have been longer than that, but I don't know. I'm not familiar with the 1935 cements. So.
Because I've gone back and studied the old ASTM, and they were evaluating hauling it in a ready-mix truck because everything was site mixed. And they wanted to evaluate what happened when a truck delivered concrete, and then they were evaluating how the concrete acted when it came down to chute. Because I was studying the chute versus the pumping process. And it's very interesting to go back, and then when they went to the pneumatic tires, with the area, they were evaluating what happened to the concrete when it went down the road with air in the tires instead of the solid rubber tires.
That's interesting. If you get a chance to read the 1935 C94 document, you'll see that it says in there things like ready-mix concrete is defined as concrete that arrives at the site ready to pour, basically. So when it gets there, you don't have to do anything with it, which could imply that you shouldn't have to add water or anything else. It also says that it's a mixture of cement, water, aggregates, and that if you want to use admixtures, this really irritated me when I read this, if you want to use admixtures, you had to get permission, right? So it wasn't a given. So my kids would have starved back then, I guess. Couldn't sell a lot of admixtures. So I have probably heard a dozen different reasons of why the 90 minutes in there, and I don't know which or if any of them is correct. So from a ready-mix producer's perspective, why would you want to get rid of the 90 minutes, right? So one reason might be that rejected loads cost money, right? I mean, it costs money, just the concrete in there. It kind of takes away the ability to use technology. And man, we have far different technology, both on the chemical side and the mechanical side, than we did in 1935, or even when I first got into the industry in 1980. In 1980, the company I went to work for actually still had a lever plant. I called it a lever plant, where a guy sat up there in a chair and pulled levers and either filled a box or he counted, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, and then, whatever. So we still had one of those plants. So things have changed a lot. So the ability to use technology, is a bit limited with that. And then one thing that really is huge today is disposing of returned concrete. Every ready-mix producer that I talk to, there's a significant cost associated with getting rid of the concrete that comes back to the plant. So if you've got concrete coming back that is otherwise possibly perfectly good, you have disposal costs. And then truck time would be a reason not to get rid of it, right? If you're a ready mix producer, you want your truck back as soon as possible. Project schedules. If contractor A in the morning holds your truck longer than you anticipated, now the rest of your schedule is messed up. But is a 90-minute time limit, is that a legitimate reason for keeping that in there? Is it for scheduling in a technical document? I would question that. Then the other thing would be, build up in the drum, especially with low slump concrete. So that would be some reasons why you might want to keep the 90 minutes. From a contractor's perspective, they might want to get rid of it for placement delays. In the scenario I mentioned earlier where you've got half of the truck unloaded and somebody says, send it back, the concrete's no good. Now that's delaying the contractor. Placing equipment cost, he's paying for the pump, he's paying for the conveyor, or whatever it is, he's paying for the concrete finisher, all those things, and then again his schedule. And of course one reason he might want to keep it, the contractor, he or she I should say, is workability. Obviously at the end of 90 minutes he might not have the workability that he wants to place the concrete. And remember the part that says that if at 90 minutes the concrete's fine, I'm paraphrasing, then it might be okay to pour it out. That's part of the deal. So this is a perspective. So do we even need to change? Well, certainly I would say if you're in the Atlanta market or the LA market, you may struggle going anywhere and getting the concrete off the truck in 90 minutes. And there's concrete plants in Atlanta on every other street, and it still takes them an hour to get to the job. So certainly that's an issue. Long haul, I talked to Frank earlier, and he was telling me about hauling concrete for 4 hours. Placing methods, those certainly have changed. And then again, project schedules, delays, and then we're just throwing away good concrete. Now, a lot of the stuff that I put up here, I've heard from all the different people that I've talked to, so I'm throwing things up here. Okay? Have I irritated anybody yet? I'm just checking. It's my specialty. So extending the delivery is easy, right? We can lower the concrete temperature, right? If we want to have it in the truck longer. We can use more SCMs, and whether it's fly ash, slag, whatever, we can do that. We can mix to a higher slump. We can use a water reducer or a high-range water reducer. We can add high-range at the site. We can use retarders. We can use hydration stabilizing admixtures. Workability retaining admixtures, which I think Mark's going to talk about. We have automatically managed concrete, and I'm probably not wording that correctly, but we have a lot of tools that make it really easy to make concrete that absolutely has no issue staying in the truck longer than the 90 minutes. We have instant data. I mean, we know where the truck is. We have all the ticket information. We have management information about that concrete. We can read the target slump and the current slump. We can read how fast the drum's turning, if it's turning, total revs on the truck, whether he's added water, how much water he has left to max water cement ratio. We can know the concrete temperature. We can set up the system to let us know when it reaches max water or if the slump's too high. It's really instant data. I mean, if you look at 120 minutes, this particular truck was basically the same slump for 120 minutes, and it did add some water. So you can see how much water, and is that okay for this mix? So we have all the information. It's not invisible to us. We can do that. Workability retaining admixtures. I mean, we can hold slump for 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours. There's really not a limit as long as somebody wants to pay for it, right? My kids eat a lot. They really need to eat, so you need to use these things. So we have a lot of tools. We can use extended set control admixtures, hydration control admixtures. We keep changing the name, so I'm confused all the time. But we can make the set 2 days or 2 weeks or whatever we want to do. We have the tools to do this. So what are the arguments to lose it? When I say lose it, we mean we're just dumping that 90 minute. Get that out of here. There's no reason for the 90-minute limit. Okay? There's no technical reason. I hear that fairly regularly, that, just because it's 90 minutes doesn't mean the concrete's bad. We're not removing the time limit, right? We're just removing the default time limit. So you're still going to have a time limit. It's just going to be different than 90 minutes, or maybe it'll be 90 minutes. We don't have default values for strength, cement content, temperature, air content, any of that in C94. And then this is something that I heard often. Everyone ignores the second part. And the second part is that part that says this limitation may be waived by the purchaser if the concrete is a slump or slump flow after the 1.5 hour time has been reached, that it can be placed without the addition of water to the batch. So essentially what the ASTM now says is that if the concrete's okay at the end of an hour and a half, then it's okay. But this is mostly ignored. So where's in the back? He's an enforcer. He's an enforcer. He's the bad guy. He says, send that truck back. So how often does it happen that if at 90 minutes the slump's still good, the air's still good and everything, somebody's okay with it? I would say almost never. The concrete doesn't automatically go bad at 91 minutes. There you go. That shoots down your theory. And the 90 minutes is restrictive in that it was one size fits all. It's true. It's a specification, so that's true. We're throwing away good concrete. I love the top one. The industry, this is to love it, to keep it. The industry is not smart enough to know how to pick their own time limit. Okay. The contractors will keep my trucks forever. I don't want the liability of deciding time, and that was the part you read where either the purchaser or the ready-mix supplier makes that decision. And then I got a really long response here that says the purchaser essentially isn't smart enough to know because he doesn't even know what slump to get, or he should have. He doesn't want to open a can of worms, and putting a time on the ticket is silly. And then he reverses the argument and says, time limits has always seemed foolish because the time limit can change day to day or as temps and chemicals and all this stuff. So this one was basically arguing both sides. This is one of those that the 90 minutes has a historical basis and is matched to the dormancy period of the majority of conventional concrete mixtures. That was interesting. This one, think about this. The complete absence of any default value can do significant harm in conditions where very warm or very rapid setting conditions exist. The elimination of a default time limit virtually guarantees cracks. I can pretty much guarantee cracks regardless of the time limit. And if it's, in conditions where it's very warm or very rapid setting, you probably don't want to be at 90 minutes. Absolutely. Yep. So I put this in there and then I took it out. And then I put it in again. And then I thought, man, if I were the king of the world, it'd be ice cream every day for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. I'd make it mandatory. That way I'd feel better about eating it myself. So, I was giving this presentation as the present both sides kind of guy. Obviously, from my opening remarks, you could get the gist of the idea that early in my career, I really wanted the 90 minutes to go away. It really was a pain to me, much as the 90-degree temperature was a pain. So if I were the king of the world, would I, me personally, just my personal opinion, I would like to see the time limit go away. I think that we have the technology, do have the knowledge, we are smart enough, some of us are, to put mixes together. It's kind of like if we're going to talk about going to performance, let's go to performance and let's include that in the 90 minute. And so I did offer my opinion. I was supposed to be neutral, sorry. I think I presented the arguments that I've heard from everybody. And it's been a lot of people. It's really been interesting, again, the very strong opinions that people have on this subject. And that's it. I am done. Do you want me to questions? I'm happy to try to answer a couple. Yes?
I am generally in your report that you're 90 years.
Smart guy. Yeah.
But it seems like there's not enough guidelines for the design engineer to say, what is the time limit? Is it based on slump or is it based on the chemistry of the cement? Should it be a certain percentage of the set time? So maybe you guys need to further develop what the criteria is.
So do you?
I don't know what that criteria is. I'm not a material scientist to know that. Is slump the sole factor, or is it a percentage?
Slump and water are not synonymous. Temperature. Slump and water are not synonymous.
Okay, well,
All down
I'm
to
just
the
wondering, well, what is the criteria to say, I can be 120 minutes? What's the, how do you know it's 140?
Well, say it again, Colin.
It's all about the water. You design it based solely upon the water layer, and if you exceed it, then you screw up the water.
Then I can know what three mixes.
So, he did. Yes, sir.
Yeah, one of the things that we look at is temperature. If the mix is starting to set up, the temperature is going to rise. So therefore, if we see a temperature rise or a slump loss in the 90-minute range, then we start to look. Okay, if we start losing slump and the temperature's going up, then we're going to look at it.
Well, what's the limit?
Well, we have a 90-degree limit. Okay, that's called out.
Well, what's that based on?
You should stay to the end when they're doing the question and answer, and I'm gonna cut it off.